This is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this episode I'm calling Cult of Victimhood, Unfair Censorship is Key Entering Wedge for 21st Century Fascism. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm just using her as an example. I mean, this is an epidemic of victimhood claiming from the right wing. Marjorie Taylor Greene recently said that she was going to call the Capitol Police on a comic who made a joke that suggested that Will Smith might slap her, okay? As a, or where is Will Smith? He said, Jimmy Kimmel. And she said that, she took this as now she is someone who has paraded with a sense of bravado and muscularity, let's say. She does CrossFit and she says she carries a weapon and she's an advocate for, quote unquote gun rights. In other words, for carrying as many and as deadly weapons as you want with as few laws applying to you as possible. But anyway, and she's someone who also has gone out and harassed people specifically, in a way that is slightly menacing. But anyway, her sudden flip into victimhood is something that is would be puzzling to someone if they didn't think about the history of fascism and the history and the current and the psychology of fascism and the political strategy of fascism, which builds on all of those things. So anyway, victimhood is extremely important, is a central part of the fascist ideology and fascist politics. And I'm using the word fascism to describe the current ideology of a large portion of the Republican Party. We can call it more, accurately, American 21st century neofascism. It's not exactly the same fascism as either the Italian fascists of the the middle 20th century, or the German fascists of the 20th century, or other fascist movements since then. But it has this similarity with those, and among other things, German fascism, while in some stereotypical way, sort of the cartoonish way it's portrayed, it sort of shows this sort of bravado and machismo and hyper militaristic and death obsessed and death dealing sort of public appearance. Behind it is a sense of victimhood, that in some sense that the German people or the Italian people, or now, for instance, the Russian people are responding to a sense of being victimized by powerful forces, and that they are building on a resentment. The word resentment is used often, and resentment doesn't capture it. It's not a bad description, but it doesn't capture this sense of self-pity that is at the center of fascism. And so the self-pitying Marjorie Taylor Greene or others, and again, attaching it to the one person can get one distracted by their particular actions, their particular specifics, but they're continually drawing on a sense of lost privilege and lost grandeur that the base is feeling, the base of the Republican Party, and relative to, or victimization by, among other things, these quote unquote woke, or basically the multicultural, multi-ethnic drift of U.S. society, which has continued to change in the last 50, 60 years, as it has done for throughout its two and a half centuries of existence. But anyway, the idea is that somehow a critical threshold has been crossed, and now, according to the fascist mentality and politics, and so this critical threshold demands then an emergency response, a violent response. So it's then the combination of victimhood plus a dangerous association with dangerous means, with a sense of that politics is war, is a form of war. So you don't have any sympathy, or very little sympathy, or really total war, that you can disregard Geneva Conventions and so forth and so on, even war, the rules of war, that you can go ahead and, because you are such a victim, that you are so put upon and so endangered, that you must, in response, have an annihilatory response to your opponents, so that you will preserve your life and your way of life, or whatever it is, or your lost privileges, so forth and so on. So anyway, and this is also in recent episodes I've mentioned this, and there's been many criticisms online, unfortunately, not in such major media outlets, but in fact the major media outlets have also in the area of censorship. So one of the areas in which this sense of victimhood is being played out in the kind of high church, or the central sort of quote unquote highbrow, middlebrow media discourses in places like CNN, or in the New York Times, in the Washington Post. They all have been caught up in promoting the fictions of victimhood, or of enhancing and magnifying the sense of victimhood of the right wing, by trying to balance it out that there's a left-wing cancel culture that is really, really the America's quote-unquote free speech problem, that the New York Times wrote a long editorial about a couple of weeks ago, and also recently the Washington Post has attempted to shame a student newspaper for criticizing an appearance by Mike Pence at University of Virginia, I think it was. But anyway, so, or Virginia Commonwealth University. But anyway, so you have these prestigious and powerful, supposedly neutral or centrist or maybe liberal even institutions that are nevertheless suckered by these claims of victimhood to magnify them and to make them more important than they are. So I'm not saying, like for instance, if we take cancel culture, for instance, or the idea about cancel culture, I'm not saying there are not places where discourse and where political actions and so forth and so on have not been affected in a way that might not be ideal and might constitute a moral panic of the left in some areas that is associated with quote-unquote wokeness or political correctness. You can find examples of that, and I'm not saying that those are not things to be discussed, but they become magnified, and they become the casus belli, the cause of war, or the for the right wing to essentially take power, and the right wing is capable now, or is positioning itself now, to essentially usurp a power in the United States if they are able to win some upcoming elections, and if the Democratic Party and the media institutions that, while they are not supposed to be associated with the Democratic Party, are supposed to be associated with small d democracy, if they all fail to alert us to the danger, the imminent danger, and also their role in promoting it by inflating this sense of victimhood, and by making the right wing's sense of victimhood, giving it justification, or even not necessarily, but by paralyzing the forces that would say, no, wait a minute, you have the run of the place. Really, you are not being censored much of the time, and in fact, hardly at all. And furthermore, you have great power, and so you're not being censored and canceled. You're not really a victim, and there are some real victims in society, and you are not some of them. Okay, and so this requires also editors, and in terms of the media, and writers, to actually discern reality and create and make judgments about what is real and what isn't. And that's something that they have increasingly decided that they don't want to do, especially with regard to things that would anger the right wing. And so this is as I was discussing in my recent episode about appeasement, they are appeasing the right wing by simply not challenging them. So this culture of fear, and the culture of is very harmful, and is a sign of a potential collapse of our democracy, if the right wing can take over a good portion of the public sphere and a good portion of the discourse, and then also has an opponent like the Democratic Party that is so ineffective and so corrupt. Both sides are corrupt, but is corrupt enough to lose critical elections, and lose favor, as they have in the last few months, and really since the very first few months of the Biden administration. And anyway, so the culture of victimhood is something that is very hard to examine and look at clearly, because also, I mean, there's also this whole question of, on the left wing, there are also people who feel like they have been victimized, and there's more reality to, and they have been victimized, and so there's some more reality to that. So the drama of victimization is something that needs to be discussed. It's not non-existent in our society, but we need to have a discourse that is able to adjudicate, and also, by the way, a legal system that is able to correctly adjudicate and prosecute real victimization, and then, for instance, the police victimizing mostly Black people and people of color, and which hasn't happened effectively in only very few cases in our legal system. So there's a whole host of ways in which victimhood is a very loaded and powerful thing. And it's true also, when someone claims victimhood successfully, you gain a certain moral authority. So this is that power that one can get by being both claiming the victim but actually not being victimized. That is what, in some sense, that is one way in which fascists come to power, is they're able to, by essentially having many of the privileges and powers of a middle or upper middle or elite group in in our society, or a favored ethnic or favored race, whatever, in our society, and then also claim victimhood, they are essentially then running the table when it comes to political power, because there is a moral authority to being a victim that is acknowledged as a victim, and it's and then you have rights, so to speak, if you are if you can claim to be truly victimized, and so forth and so on. So the process, it involves a social process that is not fearful of the people who are claiming victimhood without really much behind it at all, and who are using it to victimize other people. It's a cover to victimize, and that's how it happened in 20th century Europe, and it seems to be happening here in the United States now. So anyway, so this is there's much more to this psychology of this, and much more to the politics of it. But I wanted to put this marker down and start this part of the discussion, or keep this part of the discussion going on Politics 2100. So if you have further thoughts about this, topic and examples of it, please share in the comments. And also, if you like this video, please like it, and please also subscribe to Politics 2100 if you're finding it helpful or interesting. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.